Hey there YouTube, One Fish, Two Fish, ROC. Hope you're all doing well and that everything in your tanks is healthy and happy. I just figured I'd show you what I've been up to. I'm working on a new build, and yes, there'll be videos on that coming out pretty soon here. Anyways, I came up with a little project the other day as part of the build using just some different scraps of things that I had left over from other projects. Just like a little fish hide breeding cave, pleco cave, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, I thought I'd show you what I was doing and what you might want to consider doing for your own tanks. Okay, so these are basically in production right now. They're not 100% done, but as you can see, no two are going to be alike. I just used a combination of some spiderwood twigs, of course zip ties because it needs those to become a real project, some of this plastic mesh that I had left over, and as far as the tubing goes, I used this polyethylene pipe that I got from Lowe's. It's over in the plumbing section and they normally sell it in 2-foot pieces. There are a couple sizes. There's a 1-inch diameter, and this is a slightly smaller 3/4 inch diameter. But if you wanted to make one of these for the big boys, bigger fish, you could go back to using shop vac parts. Any of you that have seen my earlier video about the skimmer that I made using shop vac parts will recognize this piece here. But again, the cool thing about these is that they're totally scalable for the size of the fish that you want to use them with. All you have to do is use a larger clay pot base. So you can go as small or as large as you want. And the way I started it was, and I don't know if this is the best way, but this is just sort of what I started coming up with the other day, was I figured if I'm going to put plants and such on this, I wanted to give them some kind of a surface that the roots could grip onto. So I wrapped the mesh around the pipe and then used a zip tie to secure it. And that was sort of my base. And then I just went ahead and started gluing pieces together. Now, again, my first attempt here, and I'm going to have to trim away a lot of the extra. You may or may not have seen a lot of videos where people use bits of cigarette filter paper and such to use as sort of a go-between when you're trying to glue two different things together using the super glue. This material soaks up the glue, and it seems to work really well as a binder for materials that aren't similar in texture. But either way, I'm not too worried about the excess because these are going to get covered in plants or rocks or other little things. But as you can see, you can pretty much do anything you want. I mean, you know, lava rock, pebbles, you know, you could use probably bits of choya, anything you wanted, pods, you know, little lotus seed pods. I wanted to show you this one. This one I call the duplex. I figured, well, you know, what if you had a couple that wanted to be neighbors, right? So I just, again, started with the pot saucer, and then the tubes, I put the mesh on them so that I can cover these with some plants, anubias, java fern, any of those rhizome plants that you can glue on. Even moss. Moss would look fantastic on one of these. And I just assembled it. So by the time I set this down in a tank, whether it's a bare bottom or whether it's on a substrate, this will end up over time looking pretty natural, I think. At the very least, it'll be compatible with most aquascapes. So be creative, you know, grab what you have. Good way to use those leftover scraps that I know every single one of you is hoarding out there from every other project you've ever done in this hobby. Admit it. Now what I'm going to do real quick here is make room, and I'll show you a couple of completed ones, and these are for the build that I'm working on. So let me carefully set this down where we can see it. There. I'm going to adjust the angle of the camera so you can see this a little better. One moment. Here's an aerial view of a couple of them that I've made already. And here's how they look underwater. This is just a spare Anubias and a couple little bits of Java fern that I'll be using to apply to some of the ones that I'm still working on. But you can see how cool these are. Furthermore, because they're using a lot of different materials, it's not only decorative, but it gives beneficial bacteria a lot of good surfaces to develop on. But you know, it'll provide a little hiding spot for whatever fish decides to use it. There. And if you want, the nice part is this gets the tubes above, right up above the very bottom level of the tank. So, you know, perhaps to kind of give them a little more security, they're not just laying right on the substrate per se. I think they look pretty cool. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks for taking a few minutes to watch this and look at my latest little creation here. Hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you've gotten some inspiration to go ahead and pull out a lot of those scraps that you have. I know you have them, admit it. Anyways, hopefully you'll put a few of these together for your own tanks, and if you do, as always, come back and show me so we all can see what you've come up with. In the meantime, I'm going to keep working on my build and get a few more of these done, and keep an eye out for some future stuff here. For now, it's time for me to say thanks and goodbye.